I was a seemingly ordinary general practitioner. I worked in Hyde, Greater Manchester. But behind my mild demeanor hid a monster. They called me Dr. Death. I am one of history's most prolific serial killers.
Shipman began his medical career in 1970. He seemed like a dedicated physician. He cared for his patients and built trust within the community. No one suspected the darkness that lurked beneath the surface.
In 1972, I moved to Hyde. I started working at the Donnybrook Medical Center. I quickly became a respected figure. Patients found me charming and attentive. I had a way of putting people at ease.
This made it easier for Shipman to earn their trust, their blind faith. It was during his time in Hyde that Shipman's dark side started to show. He began to use his position to murder his patients. He mainly targeted elderly women, preying on their vulnerability. He acted with chilling calculation and precision. Shipman's methods were simple, yet effective. He administered lethal doses of diamorphine. He often visited patients at home, injecting them under the pretense of medical care. He then falsified medical records to cover up his crimes.
Hyde began to see a spike in mortality rates. The Grim Reaper, it seemed, had taken up permanent residence.
Most unsettling were the victims, mostly elderly women, often in good health. The sheer number of deaths under Shipman's care was staggering. He blended in, a predator in plain sight. His patients never suspected they were in mortal danger. Their trust became their downfall. Despite Shipman's meticulous planning, red flags began to appear. Local undertakers noticed the high number of cremation certificates signed by Shipman. The deceased were often found in strikingly similar positions. They looked too peaceful, too staged for natural deaths.
Whispers of suspicion turned into hushed conversations. People began to notice the pattern. Why were so many of Shipman's patients dying? Why did they look so undisturbed in death? The questions lingered, unanswered, fueling the growing unease.
Concerns reached Deborah Bamford, a local doctor. She was troubled by the number of death certificates Shipman had signed. She went to the police with her concerns.
The police, however, were slow to react. They dismissed her concerns. They saw Shipman as a respected doctor. The initial investigation was mishandled. We failed to recognize the magnitude of the situation. We treated it as a routine inquiry, not considering the possibility of a serial killer operating in our midst.
The police's inaction had tragic consequences. Shipman continued to kill. He claimed more victims, their lives cut short by their trusted physician. The families of the deceased were left grieving, robbed of justice.
The police finally launched a formal investigation into Shipman in 1998. This came after persistent pressure from local doctors and journalists.
The investigation revealed the horrifying truth. Shipman had been killing his patients for years. The investigation uncovered Shipman's modus operandi. He would visit his victims at home. He would inject them with lethal doses of diamorphine. He would then forge their medical records to make the deaths look natural. The scale of his crimes shocked the nation.
The investigation also revealed the police's negligence. They had failed to act on early warnings. They had dismissed the concerns of local doctors and undertakers. Their inaction had allowed Shipman to continue killing for years.
The final piece of the puzzle that unraveled Shipman's sinister game was not his disregard for human life, but rather an act driven by greed. Kathleen Grundy, one of Shipman's patients, was found dead in her home. Her death, like the others, raised no immediate alarms. However, a suspicious will soon surfaced. The will, surprisingly in Shipman's favor, left him a significant portion of Grundy's estate. This raised eyebrows.
Angela Woodruff, Grundy's daughter, a solicitor, suspected foul play. She refused to let her mother's death become another statistic. Woodruff went to the police with her suspicions. She presented the forged will as evidence.
The police, finally presented with irrefutable proof, exhumed Grundy's body. The post-mortem revealed lethal levels of diamorphine. The game was up for Harold Shipman. Finally, the authorities had the evidence they needed. Shipman, the seemingly respectable doctor, was arrested. The trial of Harold Shipman began in October 1999. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. This included medical records and witness testimonies. Shipman maintained his innocence. On January 31st, 2000, Shipman was found guilty. He was convicted of 15 counts of murder. The judge sentenced him to 15 life sentences.
In 2004, Shipman was found dead in his prison cell. His death brought little closure to the families of his victims.
The case of Harold Shipman sent shockwaves through the UK. It highlighted the importance of vigilance and accountability in healthcare.